Jen, and today we're going to do a top 10 list of my favorite fantasy of all time. Some of these will be series, some will be standalones. If you have an absolute favorite that you don't see on my list, I may not have read it yet. I would love for you to leave me a recommendation in the comments. Starting out at number 10 is Jade City by Fonda Lee. I'm putting Jade City in the number 10 spot because it has the greatest chance of moving either up or down on this list once I read the rest of the trilogy. Jade City is definitely a fantasy novel, but it's also a crime novel, which has me wondering if crime fantasy is a genre. It should be. In Jade City, there are two main clans that are fighting for the same territory and for the jade resources that the magic is based on. It reminded me a lot of the Neapolitan Quartet, which is a bit of an odd comparison, but it's one that I kept coming back to. The characters in Jade City are so complex, and I'm scared and excited for the rest of the series. I'm scared for the heartbreak because I become so invested in these characters, but I'm also excited because I was just so riveted to Jade City. Number 9 is the only children's fantasy that I have on this list, and that is Fablehaven by Brandon Mull. Fablehaven follows siblings Kendra and Seth, who discover that their grandfather takes care of a magical place called Fablehaven. There are 5 books in this series, and each one deals with different magical creatures and magical artifacts, and it's their responsibility to keep this world safe, and I loved every single book in this series. Book number 8 is a standalone novel that I adore, and that is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This is a weird and wonderful little book. Piranesi lives in a vast labyrinth-like house that's filled with water and birds and statues, and it's Piranesi's job to document this house, and he explores it as the tides come and go. There is one other person who lives in this house that he calls the Other, and I'm going to leave the description there. I was very unsure about Piranesi as I was reading it, but I'm so glad I stuck with it because it wound up being my favorite book of the year that I read it. What do you think book 7 is going to be? It's this one. Book number 7 is a Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. Like Jade City, I'm not sure where on this list I should put this since this is the only one I've read of the series so far. A Game of Thrones is the first book in the A Song of Ice and Fire series, and thankfully I pulled this book out of my TBR jar last year and I wound up absolutely loving it. If you've seen the show, you know a lot of what is in this book, but there really is so much more. George R.R. Martin's writing is amazing, and I also made some assumptions on the way he writes women based on the show, and my assumptions were completely wrong. I loved every character, even if it was me loving to hate them. Every chapter was written from a different point of view, and I was invested in every single one of them. I hope to continue on with this series, and I assume it's going to continue to climb even higher on this list. Book number 6 is a series that I am caught up on, and that is the Wayward Children series by Seanan McGuire. There are 10 books out at this point, and it's one of my favorite series to read each year. In an Absent Dream is book number 4, and it's my favorite one of the series. Some of these can be read out of order, but I do recommend reading them in the order that they were published. They feature characters who have gone through Narnia-like portals into other worlds and are forced to come back to the normal world. Some of these books are set entirely in a new world, and some of them are set at the School for Wayward Children, which is where these children go when they return to the normal world. These books are usually heartbreaking, but I adore them. Book number 5 is the first book in a new series, and that is The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi. I gave this book 10 stars out of 5. Pirates, a demon, adventures, found family. I love this book. Amina is a retired pirate, and she's living off the grid with her mother and her daughter, and somebody shows up that makes her an offer that she can't refuse. The woman's granddaughter has gone missing, and she hires Amina to find her. And so Amina has to gather her crew and set off on another adventure. We're supposed to get another 2 or 3 books in this series, and I absolutely cannot wait. Speaking of pirates, book number 4 is The Princess Bride by William Goldman. The Princess Bride is one of my favorite books and one of my favorite movies. It is such a pleasure reading The Princess Bride and being able to be with and see the characters that you've grown to love from the movie. There's a lot in the book that isn't in the movie, like how Inigo's father died or why Miracle Max is wanting Prince Humperdinck's ultimate suffering. This is a hard book to describe to people who aren't familiar with The Princess Bride because the author is writing an abridged version of the story that contains only the good parts. It is absolutely delightful and a surprisingly emotional classic. The number 3 spot goes to the entire Mistborn Era 1 trilogy. The very basic premise of this is, what if the Dark Lord won? What would that world look like? And that is the world that our characters are in Mistborn. I consider the complete trilogy to be a masterpiece, and I think it is the best way to introduce people to Brandon Sanderson's books. There's an awesome magic system that is easy to understand, and his writing is very accessible. The way the trilogy wraps up and all the threads are tied together really builds a lot of trust with Sanderson before you head into a series like the Stormlight Archive. Number 2 goes to The Lord of the Rings, and especially for me, The Two Towers. The Lord of the Rings is the ultimate comfort read for me. I used to listen to the Rob Inglis audiobooks, and now I listen to the Andy Serkis audiobooks. I'm not sure anybody needs an introduction to The Lord of the Rings, but essentially, one ring was created to have power over the other rings that were gifted throughout Middle-earth. Our band of characters are on a journey to destroy this one ring and save Middle-earth. And my number 1 spot goes to the Gentleman Bastard series and Red Seas Under Red Skies. The first book in the Gentleman Bastard series is The Lies of Locke Lamora, where we meet our band of thieving orphans. I love the banter and the friendships, and Scott Lynch's writing is so beautiful. You may have noticed a few pirate books on this list, and in the second book, our favorite characters, Locke and Jean, are forced to be pirates. So let me know if you share any favorites with me on this list, and I would really love to have some recommendations in my comments. I appreciate you being here, and I will talk to you soon.